Please make very welcome Josh and Morotti.
I'm 17 years old, in the surf on the Gold Coast on a family holiday. I hear a piercing scream and turn around as my sister is running away from a bright orange object in the waters. It's the September school holiday and we're on holidays down at Talabudra Park, Caravan Park on the water. We had tried actual camping once, several years prior, only once. But Mum decided that the prerequisites for camping were a full-size mattress, a full-size fridge and freezer, and a television. So we eventually ended up in a pop-top caravan and enjoyed some family holidays down at Talabudra. So as we were in the surf, I looked down and as everyone else was running away, I was intrigued. Surely nothing natural would be this orange. And I took a look closer, and as I saw its kind of little grey tail, I thought, it couldn't be. I plucked the underwater digital camera out of the ocean and took a look. The first things I noticed as I pulled it out was the screen was completely scratched. All of the buttons were fused in their positions you could see the sand underneath all of the buttons. Obviously this was not recently lost in the last 5 minutes. And after the initial discussions of showing it around and whatnot, we had to decide what to do with it. So I went up to the lifeguards on duty and I said, oh, has anyone reported a camera missing today? And no, they hadn't. But they told me I could leave it there with them and they would hold it for a couple of days, and if no one came for it, they would send it off to the local police station for the lost and found. Anyone can do that. I wanted to find the owner, and I wanted to see if I could get it to work again. So we took it back to the caravan park. Now, I was very eager to just open it up and see if water had been inside, but I actually had a bit of inside knowledge here. This was at a phase in my life where I still read manuals. And I just bought an underwater camera myself a few months ago, and reading through the instructions, these cameras that they put on billboards, and they say they're rugged and waterproof and drop-proof, shock-proof, all of the proofs. They have like 5 pages on the procedures you need to follow before you can take it underwater for the first time, checking all of the seals, locking it down, everything else. So I knew it would be a bad idea just to open it up straight away. I also knew there was special procedures about how you're supposed to wash them out afterwards before you open them up again. So I took it back and found a bowl under the kitchen in the caravan and put it in the water. And slowly but surely, the sand started to come out from under the buttons, but only really slowly. So this was about halfway through the holiday, so every day for the rest of the holidays I would spend half an hour just sitting on a camp chair with a bowl of water trying to work the sand out of all of these buttons on the camera. And eventually, by the end of the trip, I got it to turn on again. It worked. And so as I opened it up and I had a look around, there was no names, there was nothing engraved, anything like that. So I really didn't have much to go on, but there was the SD card. So I didn't have anything with me to investigate on our holidays. This was at the time where everyone had prepaid phones and only very rich people had data. So I took the camera and the SD card home with me after our trip. And so I started going through the photos to see if I could find whose camera this was. And so the very first photos I found were of some gym equipment out on a driveway. And so I thought, well, I presumed, why would you be taking gym photos on a driveway? Probably these are going to be listed for sale. So I looked up all of the model numbers that were on the gym equipment, and I checked Gumtree, and I checked eBay, and I even checked the trading post, but I could not find any of the equipment. There was no identifying information, it was just houses in a suburb, very, very typical. But then as I started clicking through further and further, I found a photo of a school assembly. And it was right at the back of the hall, and so I zoomed all the way in on the podium. You could see the crest on the podium, but as I zoomed in, it was a bit out of focus, and I couldn't quite read the name. but on the collars of all of the students, I could, by putting a few of them together, I could make out that it was Helensvale State School. Fantastic. I could just, it was already after hours at this stage, I could call up the school the next day, I could hand over the camera to them, and they would be able to find the owner. Anyone can do that. I kept going through the photos, and then I found the jackpot. I found a football photo. It was under whatever football competition, and the kid was standing proudly with his trophy, and across the bottom of the trophy it said Dylan Evans. And I'm like, yeah, I have a name. Only a name. I'm still left at just calling the school and saying I've got Dylan's camera. But I had those gym photos. So I looked at the white pages, and online, of course. There were 3 Evans families in Helensvale. No idea which one it was, and didn't really feel like cold calling. I was still a teenager after all, like phones. So I went on Google Maps on Street View and compared the front of each of those families that were in the white pages with the gym equipment, and I found a match. It was at this point, and only at this point, that I started to wonder how that conversation might go. To me, this was a perfectly logical sequence of events, but it became obvious that others might not think that that was quite normal. So I called up the number, and the lady answered the phone, and I said, "Hi, do you have a son named Dylan Evans?" And she very cautiously said, "Yes." And I said, "I have an underwater camera here that I think might be yours." And she was absolutely ecstatic. Her pesky husband had lost it in the surf. Some 6 kilometres south at Tugun, almost 24 hours before we picked it up at Talabudgera Creek. So they were very excited to have their camera back, all of their family photos from their holiday, and I learned a valuable lesson about looking people up online.